Hello world! Cybercriminals are mining crypto on GitHub. A hacker whose death was faked has been arrested, and there's a new kind of ransomware which frames security researchers. That's all coming up in today's roundup of cybersecurity tech news. A massive crypto mining operation has been discovered which literally runs on GitHub, but how does that work? Well, GitHub has a certain feature which cybercriminals love, GitHub Actions. This feature allows developers to spin up a temporary virtual machine on GitHub servers so they can automate tasks like code compilation and testing. But because this runs on a standard VM, it can be used to do almost anything, like mine crypto. And the very second GitHub added 2,000 minutes per month of this compute power to their free tier, cybercriminals have been all over it like a moth to a lamp. However, there is a catch. Whilst these VMs are fast enough for what they're designed for, they suck at crypto mining. I mean, forget high performance GPUs. These things run on just 2 CPU cores, so mining is incredibly slow, meaning miscreants have to be creative. And in this latest campaign uncovered by researchers, this means that the group behind it, which the researchers are calling Purple Urchin for some reason, are mass creating thousands of bot accounts, not just on GitHub, but on other platforms which offer a free tier of a similar service. And the way Purple Urchin mass creates accounts is really quite clever. They use a load of different VPNs, so each account is created under a different IP. They also use a special tool to automate mouse and keyboard action when clicking through the account creation screen on GitHub's website. And at this point, only the CAPTCHA is standing in their way. But many CAPTCHAs, GitHub's included, have an option for the visually impaired. This means listening to a bit of audio
9, 8,
and just typing out the numbers. Purple Urchin bypasses this with the help of a speech-to-text AI. And after this hurdle, Purple Urchin has another bot. And of course this whole process is scripted, so they don't have to lift a finger. Thousands of bots later, Purple Urchin has an army to be reckoned with. But what's the goal here? And I realise that might sound like a dumb question. I mean, they're mining crypto, literally printing money. But the devil's in the detail. They're mining really low profit margin coins. I believe the technical term for these is shitcoins. So it's thought this whole operation could just be a test, a precursor to a larger campaign where they might mine something like Monero. And let's assume that is the plan. Just how much money would they make mining Monero on GitHub? And this is where things start to get kinda ridiculous, because for every 1 Monero the cybercriminals mine on these VMs, it would cost GitHub over $100,000, simply because mining in a VM, which is running on only a couple CPU cores, is incredibly inefficient. But hey, Purple Urchin aren't footing the electricity bill here, so why would they care? But an alternative theory is that they're targeting these small value coins because it's easier to attack their underlying blockchain. As in, when it comes to crypto, if you control 51% of a network's hash rate, then you can control the entire network and validate arbitrary transactions, potentially stealing millions of dollars. This is much more doable on smaller, less relevant coins. But regardless of their intent, ever since the researchers published their findings, Purple Urchin's campaign has evaporated. Nevertheless, crypto mining using cloud services remains a huge problem for platforms, and one such platform, Heroku, has announced that because their security teams are spending an extraordinary amount of effort to manage fraud and abuse of their free product plans, they plan to stop offering free product plans altogether. And whilst GitHub has made some changes to their service to combat crypto mining abuse, they've kept their free tier, and so the crypto mining continues. The alleged operator behind the notorious malware Raccoon Stealer has been arrested after his cybercriminal friends seemingly faked his death. But let's back up a bit. So Raccoon Stealer spawned in 2019, latching onto the malware as a service trend, as in, rather than using it themselves, the developers rent it out to other cybercriminals on a subscription model. For $200 per month, customers get a web interface where they can generate custom versions of Raccoon Stealer, manage the computers they've infected, and most importantly, retrieve stolen credentials. Because Raccoon Stealer is primarily an info stealer, as in, after infecting a PC, it'll exfiltrate saved passwords, credit cards, crypto wallets, and so on. It can steal data from nearly 60 apps. And unfortunately, this malware is really noob friendly, as customers don't have to worry about operating their own servers or developing their own malware. They only have to deal with spreading the malware, whether that be with phishing emails, fake cracked software, or in one case, someone went so far as to set up a fake play to earn game, Cthulhu World, with the sole intent of spreading this malware. So Raccoon Stealer had become incredibly popular among cyber miscreants, but the party was crashed in March when they abruptly announced that they had to close their Raccoon Stealer project because, due to the special operation, referring to the war in Ukraine, members of their team had been killed. They added that some of their servers have already stopped responding, but it seems that this was all a lie. I mean, well, the servers had stopped responding, but for different reasons. You see, the guy they're referring to who was killed in the war is allegedly one Mark Sokolovsky, apparently one of Raccoon Stealer's key developers. But far from dying in the war, he fled it. He's thought to have bribed Ukrainian border guards in order to leave the country, because of course there's currently a ban on men leaving Ukraine. He was then snapped crossing the border from Poland into Germany in his Porsche. I wonder where he got the money for that from. He eventually arrived in Amsterdam, with who I'm guessing is his girlfriend, who documented their entire little adventure on Instagram. Bad idea, because shortly after he was arrested by Dutch police, and is now facing extradition to the US on charges which could land him in prison for 20 years. But a few questions remain unanswered. How did US authorities, the FBI in this case, figure out his real identity? Court documents don't explain, but thanks to anonymous sources which tipped off a popular cybersecurity blog, it seems our miscreant made one tiny but fatal OPSEC mistake. Early on in his cybercrime career, under one of his pseudonyms, Photix, he made a post on a cybercrime forum which referenced a certain Gmail account. The FBI discovered it was connected to an iCloud account, and at this point, everything unraveled. The feds accessed it and found a bunch of incriminating evidence, including this picture, at which point they were probably just waiting for an opportunity to arrest him, which his trip to Amsterdam provided. As for why his Raccoon Stealer team members faked his death, well, I can't imagine admitting one of your main guys has been arrested and one of your servers has been seized by the FBI would be very good for business, because shortly after they announced they were shutting down, they U-turned, saying they were going offline to rework some code and to expect them back in a few months. They even doubled down on the fake death of their team member, saying they will continue to work in his honor. It'll be interesting to see how their comeback goes after these new revelations. As to the server the FBI seized, they found over 50 million stolen credentials on it, and they've launched a website where you can check if your email address is included in the data dump. A strange new kind of ransomware has appeared, whose main purpose is to frame security researchers. This is bizarre. So victims have been finding their files encrypted with the ASOV file extension. Hidden within is a ransom note. You'd be forgiven for thinking that this is just regular ransomware, perpetrated by some cybercriminal intent on extorting people out of a couple $100 of Monero. But not quite. The note starts with, "Hello, my name is Hasharazad, a Polish security expert, and to recover your files, contact us on Twitter," listing a bunch of Twitter accounts belonging to prominent cybersecurity researchers who have nothing to do with this ransomware. This whole thing is obvious BS, specifically manufactured just to cause problems for these researchers, by some unknown person with a grudge against them for some reason, or maybe they're just doing it for some twisted kind of fun. Problem is though, if you're a normie who just so happens to succumb to this ransomware, you don't know that, and people on this list have reported that victims have already started contacting them for help recovering files. The rest of the ransom note is about the war in Ukraine, claiming the purpose of this ransomware is to bring your attention to the problem. It's written from the perspective of someone who's pro-Ukrainian, but this just seems to be a badly written false pretext for spreading this ransomware. I mean, there are reports of Ukrainian organizations being infected with this. And for some reason the note signs off with hashtag Taiwan is China. It just doesn't make any sense, but I guess the note just doesn't need to. I realise so far I've been describing this as ransomware, but it's more akin to data wiping malware, as there's no way for a victim to retrieve their files. I mean, the security researchers implicated have nothing to do with all of this, and there's no contact information for whoever is actually behind it, so victims are pretty much out of luck. And unfortunately, it is quite easy for someone with way too much time on their hands to pull off an operation like this. As this malware isn't being spread by some sophisticated method, there's no phishing campaign, no vulnerabilities that are being taken advantage of. Instead, the miscreants behind this has been taking the low-effort approach of just buying installs on hacking forums, and by that I mean they've been paying botnet operators to execute this malware on a number of their bots. And this is a lot cheaper than you'd expect, with botnet owners typically charging just 10 cents per install. So armed with a couple $100, someone could potentially cause havoc on thousands of computers. This video was made possible by Octopart, a website I've been relying on over the last few years in my electronics business. Octopart.com is essentially your component sourcing Swiss Army knife, making it simple to keep tabs on component stock levels in real time throughout a range of distributors, which is pretty important given the current component supply situation. You can also easily grab datasheets and CAD models for components when you need them. The best part is, it's free to use, and Octopart is integrated right into Altium 365. If you want to give Altium a go, you can find your free trial link in the description. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.